Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are around the world today. First of all, thank you for joining this third in the Weidmann Medical Technology webinar series. I am joined today by Peter Zweifel, who is based in our Rapperswil, Switzerland, headquarters for MTBA. And he is going to be sharing with us today his experience, or should I say Weidmann's experience in 25 years with syringe closures. With that said, we have a large audience today, but we will try and get to all of your questions. If you have any questions, you can click the button in the top corner with the question mark in there. If you add your question, don't worry, you won't be disturbing Peter through the presentation. They will come to me, and I will rejoin at the end and share with Peter any questions you might have. And yeah, we will try and get you answers. So without further ado, I would like to introduce and hand over to Peter, and I will see you all towards the end of the webinar. Thanks, and I hope you enjoy. Bye.
Thank you very much, Francis. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this webinar about lessons from more than 25 years experience with syringe closures. Today, we will take a look at market trends, development timelines, material choices, as well as RFID integration. My name is Peter Zweifel. I'm the Director Sales Pharma. I joined Weidmann 7.5 years ago. And actually, my background is rather technical, as I have studied material science at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich. I hope you will enjoy this webinar, and I wish you a lot of fun. So let's just get it started with the content. We put together a broad variety of interesting topics for you. We will start with a quick introduction of Weidmann Medical. After that, we will start with the definition and function of a syringe closure, followed by a market overview. Starting at chapter 4, we will go a little bit more practical, so you see a little bit more behind the scenes, what's going on here at Weidmann Medical. So we start with manufacturing of syringe components by injection molding, and then I will go into 2 case studies on which Weidmann has a lot of experience with. We will make a comparison between TP and rubber, and at the end there will be also a small section about RFID and the current development with this technology. And at the very end, I am open for your questions, and hopefully I will be able to answer them. So, Weidmann Medical Technology, we are a contract manufacturer. We produce the products of our clients. We do not have own products. And we have great expertise in injection molding, assembly, and product industrialization. We are specialized, especially when it comes to high volumes or to parts with very high complexity. We also help our clients in the development of their design in order to produce it by injection molding at a high efficiency. We call it then design for manufacturing or design for assembly. So we are a trusted partner for top companies in the medical or pharmaceutical industry. It is very important to mention that we are a part of the globally active Weidmann Group. Weidmann Medical, we have 3 plants, operating plants. 2 of them are located in Switzerland, and 1 of them is located in Mexico. At the bottom of this slide, you can see some of our products we are currently producing. So in general, we divide the market into 3 areas. On the left-hand side, it's an example for an IVD device, a very complex cartridge with a lot of microfluidic features on it. The second one is what I'm going to talk about today. We just call it pharma. And the third one is a medical device. And the fourth one here is again another example for an IVD. And also, very important, we always produce under very clean room conditions. So in the most often cases, we are working under ISO 7 cleanroom class, but we are flexible. Sometimes it's sufficient to be in ISO 8. Most often it's ISO 7. We also had some cases where we went into ISO 5 production. So let's start with the definition and function of syringe closures. So on the right-hand side, you see three kinds of syringes that represent actually all the pre-filled syringes available, glass syringes. Please keep in mind, during this entire webinar, I am going to talk about only pre-filled syringes and not disposable syringes. Disposable syringes are mostly made of polypropylene, and the drug is taken out of a container, for example, a vial. So within this webinar, I'm only going to talk about pre-filled syringes. So on the right-hand side, you see those three kinds. They all look more or less the same. What the big difference is between these three kinds is actually the front end. And the front end of such a glass barrel is actually quite important, as it greatly impacts also the design of the syringe closure, which has to be applied on the glass syringe. We will go deeper into that right on the next slide. So in general, a closure system, and in a broader sense, it's a set of components which is used to seal and protect a pre-filled syringe before it is being used. It shall keep the product sterile, prevent leakage, and ensure the syringe remains safe and functional throughout storage, transport, and handling. And so depending on the syringe type, there are different types. The barrel can be either made of plastic or of glass. It can be stake needle or luer cone. A closure system may include a plunger stopper, which has the task of sealing the back end and allow the drug to be expelled smoothly. The tip cap actually just seals the front end. And then there's a needle shield for stake needle syringes, which has the task of protecting the needle, maintain sterility, and also prevent the banana shape so that the needle stays straight. Sometimes there's a little bit more sophisticated form of a needle shield. We call it a rigid needle shield, which is actually just with a rigid shield covering the needle shield. So it's a more protective and often multi-component needle shield. What is important to mention is that all of the syringe closure system, they need to have a very low profile on extractables and leachables, as they are not supposed to somehow contaminate the drug which is inside the glass barrel or the plastic barrel, of course. So here we take a deeper look at the front end designs of glass syringes. I have taken these pictures right out of a standard I will talk about a little bit more later on. So on the left hand side, you can see the front end design with a 6% luer slip. It means there's certain kind of a draft angle at the front end where a normal kind of tip cap can be applied. In the middle example, you also have a draft angle again, but plus you also have some kind of a neck, which has the task that the counterpart, the plastic part, can snap on the neck of this glass syringe and be positioned stable there. Again, at the bottom, you can see an example of how it looks like in real life. You can already see that there are a lot of dimensions on it, and that this design is defined a little bit deeper than on the left-hand side. And on the right side, it shows a typical design for the front end for a stake needle syringe. By the way, the needle is usually glued to the glass. Let's take a quick look at the history of those syringe closures. And I want to just quickly go or talk about a certain standard, which is very important within this industry. It's the standard ISO 11040. It actually deals with syringes, glass syringes, or also plastic syringes and their components. So it defines things like the design or quality criteria or even testing procedures. So the the standard with the suffix 4 is dedicated to glass syringe, and the one with the suffix 6 is dedicated to plastic syringes. And this is just an extract of the entire history. And please take a look at the years here. It all started for the glass syringe in 1996. There haven't been that many versions so far. The one for the plastic syringes is even younger. And I want to say with this slide here is that it's not that old yet, actually, and the number of changes or of new versions is actually pretty low. And this is also saying something about this pharmaceutical industry, namely that it's quite a conservative industry. Usually it is, they do not like that much to have a change. If they rather stick with a system which has been successful, which proved to be successful, which is established. And in general, the pharmaceutical industry is very reluctant to make a change, because it is always connected with some kind of risk. Let's go to the market overview. I have taken this diagram directly out of a business report, like it was, including the numbers, because I just like the way on how you can make the segmentation of the market I'm talking about. And although I do not agree about each and every number here, I still took it over because I just like the setup, and it's just a way on how to divide everything. I certainly would agree that glass is the vast majority material used for the barrels. In my guess, it would be even a little bit more than 76%, but nevertheless, I absolutely go with the trend here. The closing systems are the same ones I've mentioned before. So stake needle system, luer cone system, and luer lock form system. Again, I would agree with the qualitative distribution of the numbers. Yeah, I would say that the luer cone system, the number might be even a little bit lower than 22%. You can divide it by product. I will not go deeper into that. What made me thinking a little bit was the category by application, as I was a little bit surprised to see cancer rated that high at 32%. And well, on the other hand, I was a little bit surprised because I would have expected to see also a known category for like vaccines or heparin, and I believe the number of syringes dedicated to these categories would certainly deserve a known field for them. Again, I mean, the report, it wouldn't say whether these numbers shown here are relating to the market size in terms of money-wise, dollar size, or to the number of syringes, which obviously makes a big, or can make quite a big difference, as cancer medics can be quite expensive, and therefore then would have a much higher impact when this is referring on the value of the market. You can further differentiate the syringes by design, single chamber, double chamber, or multiple chamber, or even there's another category by the end user. Let's take a quick look at the size and the growth rate. I will go through this rather quickly. So the lower curve here is saying that currently we are in the neighborhood of 6 to 7 billion units, 6 to 7 billion syringes a year, which is an important number just to know. And also it's quite a strong growth rate we are having here. So it's rather increasing. And if you compare it to the overall sterile fill finish market, it represents roughly 40%. Again, here I see a little bit confirmation for what I said before. Vaccines have a strong growth rate, large segment at 73%. If you want to have just a rough estimation for the overall market, it is estimated to be nearly at $80 billion in 2022. So let's go on with the manufacturing of syringe components. You can see already in this picture here how it looks like here at Weidmann Medical. We always work, or the products are being produced in a clean room where at some space injection molding machine is installed. And I will just quickly go through this, that you basically understand how this injection molding process is working. So it actually all starts with the plastic, which is in the form of pellets, which is filled into the hopper. Then from there it goes to the barrel. The barrel itself is a complex system. It contains a screw, it contains heating bands, and the aim is to transport the pellets, to melt it up, to densify all the material, to remove the air, and just transport everything towards the tip of the barrel here. So at this area, you already have quite a high pressure and elevated temperature before the melt gets injected into the mold. The mold itself, it has the task of shaping the parts of our clients, and the mold is installed on two plates. One of it is a stationary plate, it doesn't move, and the other one is a moving plate. When the plastic part is ready to be removed, the mold opens up. Sometimes the plastic parts, they will be removed using a gripper system. Sometimes there could be free falling parts falling on a conveyor band, for example. It depends. Okay, so this was very quickly. Then manufacturing of syringe components, and I will take a focus on injection molding. So injection molding luckily gives us the flexibility to also produce rather complex geometric parts. Not only luer lock syringe closures like the one or example shown here, but also needle shields. So these two will be, by the way, a case study. I will go deeper into that later on. Closures for plastic syringes, they might look a little bit different. This is because when also the barrel is made of plastic, since we have a lot of flexibility in terms of the design, it is possible to, for example, mold the thread itself directly to the syringe. So you do not need another separate plastic part like up here, which has to be attached on the syringe. You can mold the thread directly to the syringe. Or on the other hand, if you have a stake needle syringe, there is the possibility to insert a needle, a cannula, into the mold and directly over mold it, so you don't even have to glue the cannula. Then there are finger grips and backstops. An example is shown here. It's just for a better handling of the syringe. Plunger rods, and just to give you the entire picture, I would rather call them like a secondary packaging. Nests and tops can also be produced using injection molding machine. So what are the manufacturing characteristics? We always use medical grade polymers. So I've shown here typical examples like polypropylene, thermoplastic elastomer, polycarbonate, or also cyclo-olefinic polymers like COC or COP, which are being used for plastic syringes, plastic barrels. It's very important that all the products we are producing, that they are compatible with all the kinds of sterilization which are existing out there. For example, could be gamma, X-ray, steam, or ETO sterilization, where I would say the ethylene oxide sterilization is the one which is most often used within this industry. We like to have high cavity molds, which are always qualified and validated for mass production. High cavity molds just means then in the end that you have a higher output of parts in a certain period of time. Usually it goes that of course the invest for the mold will become higher because you need more cavities, which is the most expensive part. But on the other hand, you will just be able to produce more parts, and in the long run, total cost of ownership is definitely lower for high cavity molds. We always work in ISO class clean room. Usually it's ISO class 7, and we are GMP compliant. We can achieve tight tolerances, and we reach optical quality, which is also quite important. If needed, automated inspection can be integrated in case 100% quality control is needed. And often, what is also needed is the assembly as an additional processing step. I will go into a specific example later on. What is important here to mention is that some components like stoppers, soft needle shields, or tip caps, they are often not thermoplastic materials. They mostly are made of rubber, manufactured by a similar process: compression, injection, elastomer molding. So this again gives you a very coarse overview of how the quality requirements can look like when you want to produce such parts. Well, in terms of forces, there are requirements, or can be requirements, for the assembly force, for torque force, pull-off force, or also for the unscrew force. And unscrew force, for example, is referring to when the LLR and the rigid cap are screwed together and you want to unscrew it, the force needs to be in a certain range. And it's also important that this unscrew force, it can be very dependent on the setting when you screw them together, on the storage conditions, on the temperature, in case there are vibrations, or also if there are sterilization. So ETO sterilization will certainly impact the unscrew force. But luckily, when this happens, the ETO sterilization, the syringe closure is already placed on the syringe, so it doesn't have such a bad impact anymore. There are always dimensional requirements, so a lot of dimensions need to be measured. There's also always biological testing like endotoxin or bioburden. Particle contamination, that's why we are working in a ISO clean room. And then visual appearance, which can just be anything. It can be the color, it can be air bubbles, it can be sink marks, it can be any kind of abnormalities which are usually defined in a specification sheet of the customer. So on the right hand side, I show you an extract of an ISO 2859, which is referring to the sampling and inspection procedures by attributes. And so for this example, let's say if you have a batch size of 25,000, usually this is a given, and what's also given is the general inspection level. Let's say you have a batch size of 25,000, inspection level 2, then this will yield in the letter M. And M then means that out of this 25,000 batch size, you need to remove 315 samples. Then there's another input which comes into play, given by the customer usually. It's the AQL, the acceptable quality level. If this number is high, then this means that you can, well, for this example, if it's at 4.0, this means that 21 samples out of these 315 can be bad in terms of a certain appearance, of a certain feature. If 22 are bad, then the entire batch is non-compliant and you have to scrap it. If it's much sharper defined, let's say at 0.15, then it's only one part out of 315 which is allowed to be bad, and still the batch is compliant. So this is the idea, and this is what we are using day in and day out. Then what I also listed here is just a bunch of other ISO standards we are using. The most important one would be the ISO 14644, or at least it's the one we are using the most, as it is referring to clean rooms and their associated controlled environments. Let's move on with the case studies. So case study number 1 is dedicated to the luer syringe closure. I have chosen this one because Weidmann has a great experience with this closure system. We have been producing it for many years, hundreds of millions every year. And usually it consists always of the same 3 parts. It's a rigid cap, which is screwed into a luer adapter. The rigid cap is done by injection molding using polypropylene. The LLR is usually produced by using polycarbonate. When they are screwed together, then the tip cap is being applied. The tip cap in this case is always made of rubber. At the bottom on the left side, you can see 3 different kinds of such a luer syringe closure. Actually, the difference here is just the color, but the color can already give you some hint on the medication which is filled in, or even the supplier of this medication. If you do a cross section to the 3D data, you can see on how these parts are connected to each other. So the LLR is screwed together with the rigid cap, and here is the tip cap, which is actually just squeezed in the rigid cap. And then you could certainly define very important zones, like here, for example, at the bottom of the LLR. So this region needs to be snapped on the cone of the glass syringe on the right-hand side, and therefore the tolerance is quite tight in this area. Or here, for example, where the luer cone is being like pressed against the rubber in order to achieve a good sealing. Let's take a closer look at the assembly, or how such an assembly can look like of such a luer lock syringe closure. So this is the top view of an assembly line we are having here presented, Weidmann, and so you have different bins here for the individual parts. It starts with the LLR. I'm going to share a video in a few seconds, but I will just give you a quick overview now. You have bins or hoppers for the individual parts, spiral conveyors, which transport the parts to the feeding lines here. So there's one station for the LLR, then rigid cap, and then the tip cap here. In the middle, you have a turntable system, which is rotating counterclockwise. And yeah, I would suggest that we just switch directly to the video. I hope it will work and you can see it properly. So this production takes place in a ISO 7 clean room. It starts off with the feeding of LLR. We are doing this on a 6-path way, so that the 6 pieces of LLR are moved directly into the individual nests. And in the very next station, presence of LLR can be checked. It is followed by the feed of rigid cap. You might notice that we have only 3 lines here. It's because of the space reasons, because the rigid cap needs a little bit more space. And when the rigid cap is inserted, what you can actually observe is that it is also screwed directly into the LLR. You can see here that only 3 places are occupied already. Then you can always install some camera inspection stations. And in the last step, there's the feeding of the tip cap of the rubber part, which is also going through the feeding lines. The presence will be checked by sensors, and then all 6 at the same time will be placed on the rigid cap. And repressing will take place before then the final product will be removed. So this is then the packaging station in this example. So by the way, the packaging station, it has been it can be very simple, like a carousel you have just seen before, or it could be also very sophisticated kind of packaging station, like a fully automatic double packaging station, where even the printing of the primary bag can happen fully automatically in order to put the name on it, or the number of pieces, or whatever. And just that you have a rough number in mind, the maximum capacity is around 120 million parts per year. So this is what you can process on such an assembly line. Then, well, this is a very nice example of a lessons learned we made. It's referring to a burr formation at the rigid cap at the gating point. So why is this happening anyway? Well, in this system, in this mold concept, we are working with a side gate and an open nozzle. Often you have a shutdown needle, and if you have a shutdown needle, you can just really close up the cavity, and you can prevent the formation of such a burr from the beginning. Of course, then the mold costs a lot of more money, but it's just a way to prevent such a burr formation. And so we had this appearance here, and it was actually an issue. And so we went into analysis and what are kind of contributing factors to the formation, what favors the formation and what does it hinder. So the raw material already has an impact. For example, polypropylene is certainly worse than polycarbonate. Process parameters certainly have an impact. If you are working at higher temperatures, then this might also favor the formation of such a burr. The draft angle, for example, has also great impact. So we actually do have some kind of a draft angle, which from an injection molding point of view is actually desirable, so that the parts can be easily removed from the mold. On the other hand, the higher the draft angle is, the more it will favor the formation of such a burr. So yeah, perhaps if you want to counterfeit such an appearance, you might want to go make it cylindrical, or even with a small undercut. It would certainly help. Then also the dimension of the gating point can also be very important, the diameter. Then, so when we had to deal with this situation, you usually also go into the mold, you take a look at the inserts and all the details in it. And if you do that, then you will quickly find out that the diameter again of the gating point has a great influence. Then the kind and diameter of the nozzle. The nozzle is indicated greenish here on the right-hand side. So there are different kinds of nozzles. There are one-hole nozzle and three-hole nozzles, and the arrangement can be different. And also the positioning of the nozzle inside the mold insert, it does impact the formation of such a burr. So it's quite a science for itself, I would say. You also will take a look at material thicknesses in terms of mold inserts, steel thicknesses, and you can even talk about thermal conductivity. So you can start thinking about, am I using the correct steel, or is there a better kind of steel to be used in order to improve the thermal management inside this area. And of course, the more you use the mold, it could also have an impact on the formation of such a burr. So the longer you use it, most often it doesn't favor this feature here. So so for our problem, what was actually then the solution in the end? In the end, we did welding of all the shape-giving parts here. We did the reworking of all the parts, and we did an adjustment of the gating point. So which means that in the end, we actually decreased the diameter of the gating point, and with that, we were able to remove the appearance of such a burr. So next case study is dedicated to stake needle syringe closures. So here again, actually you can start with a needle shield or with a soft needle shield, which is made either of rubber or TPE. So in contrast to the other syringe closure system, where the soft part is always out of rubber, it can be here also a TPE instead of rubber. So it's already in the market. If you combine such a soft needle shield together with a rigid shield, then you actually will come to the rigid needle shield, which is then a little bit a more sophisticated form, which gives everything a little bit better stability to remove and so on. So on the right-hand side, there's an example. Actually, both is being used. It can be only a soft needle shield, or it could also be combined as a rigid needle shield. So here I'm going to present some examples which are present on the market here. They are actually all similar, I would say. So, but the shape might be a little bit different, but they do have common features. Like for example, they all have a window at the top for gas and vapor penetration when the components are sterilized using ethylene oxide sterilization. Then the inside of the soft needle shield has, of course, a big task when it comes to sealing. So this area here is dedicated to the needle itself. It shall also act as a guidance into centric position, so that the needle doesn't go make some kind of a banana shape, and that everything gets sealed properly. The sealing area at the top here is directly in contact with glass. You can nicely see this on the picture on the right-hand side. These are X-ray pictures which show an actual setup of such an applied needle shield. And always what you will see, and at first glance, this is actually the difference between the different designs. There are always finger grip zones which are responsible for a good handling and for a better shield removal. So let's come to the comparison between TPE and rubber. So what do they have in common actually, TPE and rubber? Well, both are classified to be as polymeric materials, but there is a big difference between these two kind of materials. So on the left-hand side, it's a thermoplastic elastomer or thermoplastic material. All materials we are using at Weidmann are thermoplastic materials. It means that you have a linear or branched polymer chain. And here's actually the thing. You do not have any crosslinks between polymer chains for thermoplastic materials. There's no chemical bond between the chains. You just have weak intermolecular forces between these chains. And this means that when you heat up the material, it will soften up a little. The chains, they gain movability against each other, and they will ultimately melt. So it means that this material can be processed, for example, by injection molding. While on the right-hand side, you have strong crosslinks between the polymeric chains. These are chemical bonds existing between the polymeric chains, and it means that you cannot melt up this material anymore. Before you melt it, you will destroy it. So it will just remain solid when you heat it up. It will probably soften a little, but that's it. So there is no melting possible. And then what's also important is the degree of cross-linking, as it highly impacts the physical properties, and actually it does the classification into whether it's an elastomer or a thermoset material. If you have a high density of cross-links, then you're speaking about a thermoset material, like for example epoxy resin. If there is only a weak density of crosslinks, then you are much more on an elastomer, on a rubber, or a practical example would be the tire of your car is also a classic example for the rubber. So then you have this typical soft feature. Then I put together a table here which contains a lot of information. It actually then compares plastics TPE versus rubber. So when it comes to design flexibility, I will go through this rather quickly because I could talk a lot and lose a lot of time. Design flexibility is certainly better for TPE. It means that coloring goes easier. There are a lot of soft hard grades available. It shows good adhesion to polypropylene so that a multi-shot overmold can be done, tight tolerances, etc. So for the rubber, it's less amendable, I would say, for fine color coding or multi-material molding. It is, however, possible to do multi-material molding, but it's certainly more demanding than when you do this with the classic injection molding. Production complexity, I would say it's lower for TPE. I'm especially referring to the number of processes existing here. So TPE is going to be melted up, injected, and it cools down. While for the rubber, it's again a molding process and it's a curing process, which means it's a chemical reaction happening inside the mold. And after that, you do a trimming of the parts and you do washing of the parts. So you just have more process steps. Cycle time is certainly faster with TPE, as the vulcanization, the chemical reaction, it requires some time for curing. Then purity, I would also say that for TPE, it is better. High purity grades are available, medical grade TPEs with a low extractable leachable profile. As you are having here for the rubber a chemical reaction, and actually you do not have only polymer present during this reaction, there are a lot of fillers in there, a lot of additives in there, and there is no chemical reaction which is like 100% completed. So there will always be some residues. And so that's why I would say it's a little bit more critical for rubber when it comes to purity. Where rubber certainly has the upper hand is the high temperature resistance, which is very good. Compression set is certainly better over time. This is also a function of not only the time, but also the temperature itself. So overall, the compression set is certainly superior for rubber compared to TPE. That's why also for long-term sealing, rubber is very good, and also it has a long track record. And the track record, actually, I would say that this might be one of the greatest disadvantages when you talk about TPE. It doesn't have nearly such a long track record as rubber have. Rubber has a long track record. There are many established rubber elastomers which are being used, which are certified and well documented. And as I said before, the industry is quite conservative, and they rather stick to a system which they know and which is not linked to any risk. And last point is something I have personal experience with, is the availability of TPE. The availability for TPE is certainly better because simply you have more providers. Also, the lead time is shorter. Part costs are definitely lower. And for the rubber, there are few global players for the rubber, and sometimes you just have to wait very long until you receive the parts, and the part costs certainly are higher compared to the rubber. So there is quite a bunch of criteria which go for the TPE. Let's take a quick look at the RFID. First, at the basics. So radio frequency identification, it goes back nearly 80 years to the invention of the radar. However, the technology hasn't been used for some time until 1979. I'm sure all of you today, you are familiar with the usage of TPE. I've shown or I've put some images here which show the daily usage of such an RFID. And so a great advantage of RFID, or near field communication, is the great advantage of RFID or NFC is that no energy supply is required. It's also important to know that the RFID tag, or the RFID itself, the transponder, consists of an integrated circuit and an antenna, so the build-up is actually pretty easy. Usually there are 3 different frequency ranges which are being used. It's either low frequency, high frequency, or ultra high frequency. And so what is also very important is when you talk about the read range of such an RFID tag, the main factor for this is the antenna size and the used reader. And so this is quite important because if you want to integrate an RFID device or RFID tag into your device, then yeah, you have to deal with the circumstances. And if you have the freedom of making the label larger or the tag larger, then and have a larger antenna, then it will certainly increase the read range of your RFID tag. So here at the bottom on the right-hand side, you see different kinds of tags, how they can look like. Yeah, it's important to know that compared to a simple barcode or a QR code, you can actually write something on the RFID tag, give it specific information and much more information that can be stored on a barcode. So this slide here actually just shows you a few pictures of how such a RFID can look like and how it could be integrated into a rigid cap, for example. Weidmann has been active for quite a few years now regarding this. And here again, obviously, you do not have that much space. And so whether it's the RFID tag is of a ring shape, you might want to just put it here and squeeze it between the rigid cap and the rubber cap. It could also be a tag and placed at the side, or it could also be a label. Then you have to think about, do you want to place it on the inside or at the outside? Are you going to overmold, which is also a possibility, but certainly it is much more demanding. And why does it make sense anyway to use a RFID in a syringe? So certainly what comes to mind is from a supply chain aspect, the traceability is given, or it could also be the end user application. So this is actually then my last slide, a slide which shows the RFID trends for pre-filled syringes. It's just a rough overview. So today we are mainly focusing, or the market is mainly focusing on the syringe identification. There is a bunch of products already available in the market, but there's certainly more to come. So what will come in the future is then about the intelligent manufacturing or smart packaging. And on the right-hand side, I just put together a few cornerstones of the recent developments that went down in the recent years. So you can see there's quite some activity ongoing, and I'm quite certain that also in the future the activities will continue. And I can assure you, if you take a look at the patent landscape, for example, we will see that it keeps people busy. Yeah. So I've reached the end of the presentation, and I am now ready for questions, and I will try to answer them. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Peter. That was great, and we do have a few questions that have come in, so I will try and get to as many as I can in the next 4 or 5 minutes. So the first one is you had your table with TPE versus rubber, but in that table you never mentioned sustainability. So there wasn't, I don't think, a reference to sustainability. And the question that we got is regarding TPE versus rubber. Which material is I guess better for sustainability purposes?
Okay, so thank you for the question. Well, I would say what favors, in my mind, the TPE for sustainability, or at least it's a reason, is that the TPE, like also mentioned, it can be remelted, and basically it can be reused and recycled and used again. But on the other hand, to be honest, I would say, I mean, it's not that relevant actually. The relevance is not that high, because in our process there's almost no waste being produced. So we do not have any screws which could be collected and then recycled, and so there's almost no waste that would make it worth to recycle all the material. And also, on the other hand, the specification of the customers, they usually do not give us the freedom to actually use recycled material, but they want us rather to use new material. So I would say, when it comes to sustainability, I see TPE to have an advantage, but for us it's not that relevant, simply because we do not produce as much waste.
Okay, thank you. And just sticking, we just had a kind of a follow-on question on TPE compared to rubber, so I'll stick with that one because we're on the TPE topic. So can you comment on the barrier properties of TPE compared to rubber? And as quickly as you can, Peter, as we have quite a few questions.
Well, yes. Well, barrier properties. This might be actually a disadvantage of TPE. Although I'm not 100% sure about that. Okay, but I believe that there is the tendency for TPE that it can absorb the liquid from the medication a little, and in a little bit exaggerated way it can blow up a little like a sponge. So I've heard that there is a tendency for TPE that it actually takes up some of the medication, which of course would be a disadvantage, but do not nail me down on this. Okay.
Okay, I won't nail you down on this. The next question that came, you can answer yes or no to this one, Peter. Any pre-filled syringe used in inhaled products in our experience?
Come again, I didn't get that.
So any pre-filled syringe used in inhaled products in our experience?
No.
No, no experience. Good, that was perfect, Peter. One word answer.
Okay.
Moving on, we had two questions on this. You mentioned medical grade polymers, and the other question was, we mentioned medical grade plastics as a material characteristic. What standard does that relate to?
You mean medical grade? The term
medical grade plastic as a material characteristic. What standard are we using to define that medical grade plastic?
Well, medical grade plastics are specialized plastics in a sense that they are certified for use in healthcare applications. So the difference is actually that they have like verified biocompatibility, for example, and especially in terms of regulatory aspects, it's a certified material which is officially allowed to use for medical parts. So it has actually kind of a label on it which says this material can be used, it's released, and it's good for medical devices.
Okay. And to the two people that asked that question, if you want more information on exactly the definition of that, then feel free to reach out to Peter or any of our team. Question on RFID, as that has, I'm going to shift to that. Do we have the capability to in-mold an RFID tag into the luer lock cap?
Well, we would have to take a more closer look at that. Basically, I would not exclude the possibility. You would certainly have to think closely about the design of the mold and how you're going to do that. Perhaps it would make sense to divide the now existing LLR, you said, the LLR into two shells, for example, then injection mold the first part, then do the insertion by a wet label, for example, so it acts just like a sticker, and then over mold it. We haven't done it before, like we did for the rigid cap, and what just comes to mind is that for LLR you have to consider when you have to use polycarbonate. I believe this then will be a given. You are also working at even higher temperatures than you are working when you work with polypropylene. But I would say basically it's we could certainly take a look at that, yes.
Okay. And I'm going to ask one final question because I want to make sure we give everybody on the call chance to get to the next meeting or to leave the office if you're in certain parts of the world. The final question was, why isn't TPE used for tip caps?
Why isn't it used for tip caps? Well, it can be one of two things, I would say. It's either the performance of the TPE compared to the rubber, so that there perhaps might be reservations when it comes to sealing performance or the compression set, and you need to be aware that again it needs to seal over a longer period of time under different conditions. So the performance, the sealing performance, especially long term and at different conditions, might be worse for TPE compared to the tip cap. So this might be the reason. And another reason, which is always coming up over and over again, I'm sure, is just the fact that it does not have such a regulatory track record. This is something I see over and over again, and this not only goes for plastic parts, but also for glass parts. If somebody comes up, a glass syringe manufacturer, with a new, let's say, formulation for glass, it might be superior to the one which has been used so far, but still the pharmaceutical company, it will hesitate to use this material unless somebody else has already used it, and they let time pass a little and see how how it works, and if everything's fine, then the competitor might think about using this other one. So track record is always comes into play, and I believe this might also play a role here why TP has not been used as a tip cap so far.
Okay. Peter, thank you very much. Thank you to everybody in our audience today. It was great to have you all with us. Thank you for the questions. Thank you to Mr. Kramp, who I hope I pronounced that right, who helped you out there, Peter, and said that there is a medical grade plastic standard, a VDI standard, 2917-2019. Thank you very much for your comment there as well, and we will confirm that that is the standard that we're using, or if not, which standard it is. So this will be the third and final webinar in this year's series from Weidmann Medical. We will be back next year, so look out for the email. Again, we appreciate you joining us. For those celebrating the upcoming holidays at the end of this month, enjoy. Also, we look forward to seeing you in a happy, healthy new year. So thank you again, Peter. Thank you to everybody else. And yes, we certainly look forward to seeing you all in 2026 here at Weidmann Medical Technology. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.